Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum. It is the Iftar Drive right here on Salam Media. My name is Lukman Skink, and this is the Palestine Ramadan radio segment. Welcome to it. And I'm very excited to introduce my next guest. He is Associate Professor of Postcolonial and Posmodern Literature at Gaza's al-Aqsa University. He's a resident of the area. And of course, his name is Haidar Eid, and he joins me now from Gaza. Haidar, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you so much for having me on your program. It's an honor.
Jazakallah khair for your time, Sheikh. We want to talk to you about diplomacy when it comes to the Palestinian situation and when it comes to the Palestinian question, international diplomacy. And, we've been hearing a lot about the two-state solution, and many diplomats and leaders around the world are talking about that's a preferred solution to the conflict in the Middle East. Where is that right now, Haidar, in terms of getting to a place where we are going to be seeing more peace?
Yeah, well, I think the two-state solution continues to lose support in Palestine and amongst international activists, solidarity supporters, etc., etc. More and more Palestinians nowadays are realizing that the so-called peace process that has been going on since 1993, when the leadership of the Palestinian people, the PLO, decided to sign the Oslo Accords with apartheid Israel, and that this peace process has only resulted in the production of new Israeli facts on the ground, and in new, more sort of repressive practices that make a functioning, sovereign, independent Palestinian state impossible. And the irony, as you said yourself, the irony is that the facts on the ground do not seem to have convinced the Palestinian leadership. And when I say Palestinian leadership, I'm talking about right and left, whether Fatah or Hamas or the PFLP, etc., etc. Unfortunately, their argument, their argument, which again has been shared by some activists, including South African politicians, by the way, is that the two-state solution is supported by an international consensus, notwithstanding the fact that it is nothing more than an unjust solution dictated by apartheid Israel and the United States of America, and that it ignores our basic and fundamental rights as humans. And I believe, however, that the only hope for us Palestinians lies in an anti-apartheid form of resistance that mobilizes the components of the Palestinian people and international civil society, and that ultimately leads to the establishment of a single state in historic Palestine.
So that's the solution that you're talking about, a single state, and that is gaining credence and traction amongst Palestinians on the ground, as you say. We all know that when it comes to the Palestinian leadership, there is a bit of problems with regards to unity. We have the PLO on the one side, and we have Hamas on the other side, and the different Izzuddin al-Qassam. Are we going to get to a stage where all Palestinian leaders are going to eventually unite and get onto the same page in terms of the solution to the situation?
Well, this is why we are having a very serious debate here on the ground in Palestine. I mean, you know very well that it is, and our argument as anti-apartheid, and BDS activists as well. Our argument is that it is an established fact that Israel is an apartheid state, and I want to take you to the latest reports by Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and even Israel's most respected human rights organization, B'Tselem, not to mention, of course, reports by so many Palestinian human rights organizations. And all these organizations have concluded that the regime between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea is an apartheid regime. And in fact, apartheid Israel has reached its long dreamt of goal, namely Israeli sovereignty over all of historic Palestine, with non-viable enclaves providing a ghetto autonomy in which the remnants of the Palestinian people can slowly, diminish. And this
mm,
has left. This has left. I mean, look, I'm talking about facts on the ground. It is impossible to establish a sovereign, independent Palestinian state in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank nowadays. Israel has expropriated more than 42% of the West Bank with the expansion of the existing Israeli, Jewish settlements, Jewish-only settlements in the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip has been transformed into literally the largest open-air prison on earth, with more than 2.4 million, residents and prisoners. In fact, I am a prisoner of the Gaza prison, and therefore we are left with nothing. With nothing at all, not a single piece of land to establish our sovereign, independent Palestinian state. So, what is it? I mean, the two-state solution, as I have always been arguing, my friend, is a racist solution par excellence. You in South Africa never accepted, the infamous Bantustans, the white supremacist regime provided you with a solution, if you can call it, a solution. Bantu stands for, for the natives of South Africa. You never accepted that. Nelson Mandela never accepted that, and that's why he spent more than 27 years on, in prison in Robben Island and other places and other prisons as well, because he refused to accept, a similar solution. And I think that the two-state solution, exactly like the Bantustanization of South Africa, contradicts the democratic principles of the 20th and the 21st centuries. And as many intellectuals have argued, I'm talking about, the likes of Edward Said, the likes of Ibrahim Abu-Lughod, Hisham Sharabati, those giant Palestinian intellectuals. I mean, they have argued that the conditions for an independent, sovereign Palestinian state the conditions have been killed off, by the irreversible advance of the settlements, as I said, in the West Bank, and the establishment or the construction of a monstrous apartheid wall separating not Palestinians from Israel, separating Palestinians from Palestinians. In some, my friend, the racist two-state solution, which does not provide Palestinians with their basic rights, including freedom, including equality, and return of refugees to the towns and villages from which they were ethnically cleansed in 1948. This solution has come to an end, and therefore, yes, we can convince the Palestinian leadership, about the one-state solution. Otherwise, they can just step aside.
Haidar, we're talking about the solution to the Palestinian question, and we know what happened in 1948 when the state of Israel was established. That was the beginning of what is to be one of the most unjust unjust regimes in the history of mankind for the last 50 years. Now, when we talk about a two-state solution, that assumes that Palestinians can live side by side with the occupiers, but that is not the case. Is it? Is it not? You cannot have a side by side existing with the oppressor, with the invader, with the people that have killed thousands and thousands of Palestinians. So a one-state solution is effectively pushing them out. Is that not what you are saying?
Yeah, now let's be clear about it. I mean, in South Africa, you are living with your oppressors as well, and you've managed to dismantle the system of oppression that you had between 1948 and 1994, when all South Africans went to the polling stations and voted for Nelson Mandela as the first black president of multiracial South Africa. And this is what we are saying here in Palestine. Our problem is not with Israelis as human beings, as individuals, etc., etc. We want to dismantle the multi-tiered system of oppression that we have right now in Palestine. You have, one population that has everything, privileged, and you have another population that has absolutely nothing. We want to get rid, to dismantle this system, get rid of apartheid. The question, though, is how to dismantle apartheid in Palestine. You in South Africa, you managed to dismantle apartheid. You and white people, black people, Indians, and so-called colors, etc., are living as equal citizens in multiracial, multireligious South Africa. And what we are saying right now is that we need to learn We need to learn from your experience, you guys there in South Africa. The other point, my friend, is that when you talk about two-state solutions, you are talking, about Israel as a colonial country that has managed to come and invade Palestine and occupy Palestine. But no, that's not the case. The case is a case of settler colonialism, where Zionists have managed to convince many Jews in Europe who suffered under the pogrom of Nazism in the 20th century, Germany and other countries in Europe, that the only solution is to replace Palestinians in Palestine, and that ultimately led to the dispossession of Palestinians in Palestine. And I think that one problem that we have in answering the question of how to dismantle apartheid and settler colonialism, so apartheid and settler colonialism in Palestine, I think one problem is that has been the absence of a clear-cut political program offered by us, the oppressed Palestinians. Exactly like you, when the ANC offered, the Freedom Charter, when the SACP and the ANC and all anti-apartheid organizations and activists joined the United Democratic Front and managed to call on the international community to boycott the apartheid system until it crumbled in 1994. And this is why in 2005, we Palestinian civil society in Palestine decided to issue a call inspired by your struggle in South Africa, a call calling on the international community to boycott apartheid Israel until it complies with international law. We want Israel to withdraw its troops from Gaza.
Haidar, sorry to interrupt you there, but I just wanted to interject. When it comes to the call that you're making, that the entire global community needs to isolate the apartheid state of Israel. Where does global sympathy lie today? There are numerous resolutions at the United Nations Security Council against Israel. There are numerous condemnations by world leaders, even last Ramadan when they were bombing Gaza and other parts of Israel, of Palestine. But the Israelis seem to not care, and they seem to continue. Why is it that the thing that brought this apartheid South African government to the negotiating table, which was international condemnation, is not working with the Israelis? The Israelis, you can condemn them. The United Nations condemns them. Even the United States President Joe Biden, and they still continue almost regardless.
Okay, what I want to tell you, I want to paraphrase something that the late BDS activist, South African BDS activist, the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu told us when he visited us in Palestine. He said it took the international community more than 30 years to heed the call we made in the late 50s, when we called on the international community to boycott the apartheid system. I need to remind you that between 1985 and 1987, both Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan considered Nelson Mandela a terrorist, and the ANC and the SACP, or even the anti-apartheid movement was considered a terrorist organization. Nelson Mandela's name was taken off the terrorist list in the United States of America only in 2008. I mean, you know that. So it took the international community some time. The problem, my friend, is that our leadership didn't understand the lesson very well. I think the lesson we've learned from you in South Africa is that, look, we need not address the governments of Europe, Western governments. First, we need to address international civil society, and I think we are getting there. And this is why we are saying this is our South African moment. And the point is that you in South Africa managed to occupy, the high moral ground, as Mandela said, and I think this is what we are doing right now in Palestine. We are approaching, in other words, our South African moment, and we are saying, look, what international law? Not argue against that. We want to put an end to the Israeli military occupation of Arab lands occupied in 1967. All Western governments are supporting this, and they are saying not a single Western government is recognizing Israel's occupation of Gaza Strip and the West Bank as legal. We want to fight the policy of colonization and apartheid as practiced by Israel, practiced against us, the indigenous population of Palestine, and the Palestinian citizens of Israel in 1948. Not a single government is supporting Israel's practices, but I understand your point, and this is why we said we need to start with the international civil society, and I think now. What we are saying, our call is not a call to end Israel, to end Israel's existence, to end Israel, but our call is to end the multi-tiered system of oppression practiced by Israel against the indigenous population of Palestine. And this is why the BDS movement, rights-based movement, it has never a political solution. But I personally, with another group of intellectual and activists, we are saying we need a political vision, and that political vision is a secular democratic state on the historic land of Palestine where all citizens live equally.
Haidar Eid, Jazakallah khair for your time. I think you really, you've opened our minds to what is possible. And just as a final message from you, how close are we to getting to that international solidarity that is going to actually move the needle? It took 30 years, but how close are we? It took 30 years for South Africa, but how close is Palestinian to getting?
I think.
To moving
Look, I'm very hopeful, and I think we are very close. Honestly, if you look at popular resistance, and look in South Africa, you guys, you talked about the 4 pillars of struggle, including the armed struggle, and popular resistance, mass mobilization, and a massive BDS movement aiming at isolating the apartheid system. And this is where we are right now. And I think there is, popular resistance spreading all over Palestine. For the first time since last year, we've managed to unify the 3 components of the Palestinian people. 1967, the areas that were occupied in 1967, and the area that were occupied in 1948, and even Palestinians in the diaspora. And that means a lot for us. And this is why Israel is saying that the BDS movement is, in a way, an existential and strategic, poses an existential and strategic threat to the state of Israel itself. And what I'm saying is that, yes, we are, in a way, posing a strategic threat, but to the system of oppression that Israel is endorsing and implementing against the Palestinian people.
Haidar Eid, thank you very much for your time. Jazakallah khair. We look forward to speaking to you again. And thank you so much for your time. And please give our salams and our best wishes to everybody there in Gaza.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was an honor.
Barakallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. That was Haidar Ali and Haidar Eid. He is Associate Professor of Postcolonial and Posmodern Literature at Gaza's al-Aqsa University, talking to us there about the diplomatic solutions to the Palestinian question and what he believes is an international a juggernaut of BDS movement posing a threat to the continued existence of the apartheid state of Israel. Very interesting talking points that Haidar Eid has brought us, brought to the discussion and for us to think about, bringing our time to 20 minutes after 5 p.m. Central African time. We take a break. When we come back, Malala Yunus Kawanga is in the studio with us for our spiritual hour. Stay tuned.